Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and today I want to discuss what might have happened if Mulan had never taken her father's place in the Imperial Army. If she would have stayed home to follow her family's traditions, what would have happened to China? Well, I think without her brave actions, there would have been an absolutely devastating catastrophe, to put it lightly. You see, when the Han army invaded China to ensure they had the best chance of defeating Shan Yu, the emperor called up all of his reserves and requested the recruitment of as many new troops as possible. Every family had to provide one man to serve, while Mulan took that requirement for herself by disguising as a man to save her father Fa Zhu. In this scenario, Mulan would have fallen in line to her family's request, and she would have allowed her father to report for duty, which actually wouldn't have been as deadly for him as she may have assumed. Mulan's father would have never actually fought or died during any battle with the Huns. He would have been sent home immediately. To begin with, he clearly had a limp and was unable to even wield a sword while he was standing. He couldn't have marched across China, much less fought in a battle against Shan Yu's forces, so they wouldn't have kept him around. We saw through Mulan attending the training camp that any soldier who was unsuited for the rage of war was forced to pack up and go home. Clearly, the Imperial Army understood that soldiers who were unfit to fight would only consume resources and slow them down, and Fa Zhu already had everyone's respect, presumably because he was a war hero in his youth, which is shown through the fact that Shang and Chi Fu reacted in awe to hearing his name.
The Fa Zhu? I didn't know Fa Zhu had a son.
So it seems very likely he would have been discharged honorably. But while that may have seemed great for Mulan and the Fa family, the rest of the war would have been a horrific disaster. You see, General Li was certain the Chinese forces he commanded were superior to the Han army.
I believe my troops can stop him.
With that belief within General Li, he responded to Shan Yu's destruction of villages across China by moving the Imperial Army in between Shan Yu and the closest village to the Imperial city.
I will take the main troops up to the Tangshan Pass and stop Shan Yu before he destroys this village.
But of course, Shan Yu was not intimidated by the Imperial Army at all. So even when he was confronted with the reality that his army could avoid an open conflict with General Li's forces, he decided to follow the quickest path to the Emperor by battling the Imperial Army in the Tangshan Pass. And this area is the arena for the turning point for the war. Everything goes down in this pass. When the Han army and the Imperial Army battled, the Huns dominated over their enemy, allowing them to slaughter the entire Imperial Army and everyone in the nearby village. China's greatest warriors and all of their resources were seized or destroyed, and there was no one else who would have been able to stand a chance at stopping them, including Shang, if Mulan had not been a part of the war. You see, at this point in the story, the Han army is supposed to be halted by Mulan when she causes an avalanche, which of course is supposed to eradicate most of Shan Yu's forces. But without Mulan serving Captain Li Shang, no one in his battalion would have even been present to stand and die for China. Remember, Shang's men weren't supposed to be at the Tangshan Pass. They were only there because Mushu and Kriki fabricated a letter that convinced them to go to the front lines. They started marching to the Imperial city before General Li had been defeated. That decision by Mushu was the only reason Mulan, Shang, and the rest of their friends came face to face with Shan Yu, meaning that Shang would have been multiple days away when Shan Yu would have set his sights on the Imperial city. Maybe Shang could have figured out a way to stop Shan Yu if he would have been there, but he would have never had the opportunity before it was too late, which it absolutely was. You see, in response to the Han invasion, the Emperor selflessly commanded his army to protect the villages across his land.
Send your troops to protect my people.
But by sending all of his troops away, the Emperor was left completely defenseless. That means that with the defeat of the Imperial Army, Shan Yu would have had no resistance in his path to destroy the Emperor and end his dynasty. Shan Yu wouldn't have been forced to secretly enter the Emperor's palace to capture him. They would have stormed the Imperial city at their full force. They would have murdered the Emperor, and they would have burned what was left of the kingdom to the ground. And what I think that means is that Mulan's family wouldn't have been able to avoid the Huns forever. After the Imperial Army and the Emperor had fallen, there would have been no one left to organize an army to keep the remaining villages safe. So if the Huns ever came to their home, the Fa family would have been defenseless and likely would have been killed. Without Mulan's presence in the war, China would have fallen. She truly was the single grain of rice that was capable of tipping the scale. She changed everything. Find people to support this channel directly. Consider earning your ears by becoming a channel member on YouTube. And of course, thanks for watching and have a magical day.